What if I told you that the reason your business feels exhausting right now has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with the fact you have been industrialized by AI? Most online businesses today are factories. It's all about output. Optimize as much as you can, test things, repeat the same stuff. So you think to grow, you need to churn out and create as much content as you possibly can. But I built a multi-six-figure company and 75,000 followers on LinkedIn by refusing to play that game. In this video, I am going to give you the 4 Renaissance principles that allow you to step away from the AI noise and build your legacy by actually being inspired by the ones who built masterpieces that still win today and applying these principles into your business. This is what throughout this year and beyond will separate those who burn out chasing visibility from those who really build recognized, visible bodies of work that attract the masses, outlive trends, and create wealth that actually compounds for decades, just like the Renaissance did. For context, I've hosted luxury retreats for hundreds of women in business. I've coached thousands of different business owners, and I run a high-level mastermind for women building legacy-led businesses. I am seeing this every single day. And I'm telling you this because I can really see this shift happening right now across many different business owners. Online business is entering a new era of technology and AI, and a lot of really talented, intelligent women are accidentally getting trapped in this factory model. This video is so that you can be ahead of that change and make sure that you are positioned to benefit from this shift, not be replaced by it. So here's the first piece that most productivity culture will not like, and that is that AI advice is becoming a creative crisis. Yes, AI can be efficient. It can train you to outsource your intelligence and your intuition to a robot. And before you switch off, by the way, I use AI. I'm not anti-technology. It can be amazing. But the thing that nobody is noticing is that it's training entrepreneurs not to actually listen to themselves. So look at your own life for a second. Be honest. Have you asked ChatGPT what your niche should be? Have you asked it how to write your content? Have you asked Claude how to handle a conflict? Have you asked any kind of AI tool what your business or your offer should look like to be successful? Have you asked it how to position yourself? At first, this feels smart, right? It feels efficient. But if you rely on it too much, which is very quickly happening, you start second guessing your own thinking. You don't allow your actual ideas to become fully formed in your own mind. And ideas, when implemented, are currency. This is how all businesses are created, from an idea. This is how you stand out. Your greatest asset as an entrepreneur is not how quickly you can make content with AI or ask it for advice. It's your genuine ability to innovate and your ability to see something differently. If you dilute that, you don't just lose this feeling of being creative, which in itself is really sad, but you lose your competitive edge when it comes to business. Because AI, what it can do is it can replicate patterns and remix information in all these different ways, right? But you know what it can't do? It can't replicate your own ideas and conviction in those. It cannot create culture shifts or genuine thought leadership that creates mass followings on social media. It also can't sense timing, which is crucial for your business right now. And the renaissance for business owners is needed more than ever to prevent amazing ideas from just dying out and getting caught up in this AI machine. So I want you to write this down right now. Where have I outsourced thinking that I actually could be strengthening myself? Not using tools to think. There's a difference when you actually outsource your thinking or your strategy. Your thinking and your strategy should always come from you. Tools are just things like AI tools to amplify those, amplify an already strong strategy, an already strong idea. Okay, the second thing you need to know is that social media is starting to feel like bots talking to bots. Who else feels like this sometimes? Everything is optimized for a trend, to perform, or to go viral. Everything is copy pasted. And the algorithm is basically saying, be louder, be faster, create more, be more polarizing. That doesn't feel good. And this comparison that comes as a result of this, which is the third thing, is flattening your originality. You scroll, you see what someone else is doing, you adjust your business model, your plan, you water yourself down because maybe that other person online disagrees with you. You post something that maybe you don't even like yourself, and then you wonder why your business feels quite hollow because you're not creating, you are producing. And this is the most dangerous place for an entrepreneur to be because it means you're not able to do the things that actually grow your business faster. And what are those things, I hear you ask? Innovation. When Henry Ford, if we go back that far, built the Model T, people were not asking for cars. He said himself, he was like, if I ask people what they want, they would say a faster horse. He didn't improve horses. He changed the category. He completely revolutionized it, right? Same with, when Apple launched the iPhone, no one was saying, give me a touchscreen. I remember thinking, this is weird. I don't know if my thumbs will fit on the touchscreen, right? They created the future. And then we realized, oh yeah, I'd like that. Airbnb didn't ask, okay, how do we improve hotels? Uber didn't ask, how do we make taxis slightly better? They changed the game. They asked a different question. When you ask yourself the question of, what if I could change the game? That is innovation. That is your job as an entrepreneur. And it's not going to come from, okay, let me just see what someone else is doing and adjust it slightly, run it through ChatGPT. No way. It comes from, okay, what do I see right now in my industry that other people aren't seeing? How do we create something way better and completely different? And that question only gets answered when you are thinking independently, not when you're constantly consuming or outsourcing your ideas to ChatGPT. And so if we're always adjusting to the market, you're never going to lead it. And leadership is what builds brands that really make an impact and a difference. That is Renaissance thinking. The artists of the Renaissance didn't ask themselves, what paintings are really popular right now? If they did, they wouldn't have created the Renaissance. It would never exist. They led an entirely new culture. They showed people what beauty could look like in a different form. And that is exactly what visionary entrepreneurs actually do. So let's bring this back to you watching this right now. Most entrepreneurs I work with didn't start their business just to make money. Yeah, maybe you love money, same, but there's more to it, right? There's a way you want to do business with integrity, boundaries, respect, honesty, creativity, purpose, impact. And in a world that really focuses on shortcuts, that's quite rare. We're starting to see how things need to change in business to counteract this. So how can you benefit from the masters of the Renaissance in your business? I've spent months researching this in depth and testing it to see what the results are, and the results are incredible. Okay, so before the Renaissance, to apply this, right, paintings were flat. They were like 2D, and they had these kind of stiff backgrounds and faces, and there was no depth to them at all. Suddenly, what changes? Perspective, lighting, anatomy, science, mathematics, all of those things did something really powerful for art. It can now show a very subtle emotion of whoever was being painted that was not previously visible. Then they started to build cathedrals, the most incredible cathedrals still to this day, if we compare it to the kind of box-shaped buildings we come up with nowadays. Even if we think about this 17-foot statue carved from a gigantic block of marble that no artist believed they could ever create a masterpiece out of. I am talking about the famous statue, the David, and it came from Florence, a relatively small city, an underdog, no real power. That is what happens when a culture shifts how they actually think. And I believe for entrepreneurs, this is what it's all about. You shifting how you actually think and using your power as a human to counteract what's going on with AI right now. So let's explore this. I'm going to share with you the 4 pillars of Renaissance building that you can bring into your business to benefit from these principles. And also I'm going to show you the 3 types of entrepreneurs that are stuck in the old model so that you can know exactly how to get out of it, as well as the universal laws that we all really need to know that made these masterpieces of the Renaissance last 500 plus years. And by the end, you're going to know exactly what to change. So let's take a look at the Renaissance, shall we? Let's look at Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel. He was working on this for 4 years. He was not having feedback of an algorithm or people liking or that dopamine hit. And actually, that benefited him greatly because he was very dedicated to his craft. Today, 5 million people go to see that every single year. That is something that was a devotion to mastery, and it paid off not just then, but for years and years to come. Then we look at the David, the huge marble block, right? Other sculptors said, nah, we can't do that. He saw something different inside that. He carved it for years, and that statue still defines Florence. He wasn't thinking, how do I go viral? It sounds kind of weird to think of that as well, right? He was thinking, okay, what masterpiece can I create from nothing? That's what we want to do. Now, let's think about this, right? In terms of context, the Renaissance came after a collapse. It came after the Black Death, plagues, there was economic breakdown, political instability. Does this sound familiar? They didn't respond with speed. They responded with meaning. Meaning. They asked, okay, what does it mean to be human? What is worth persevering through? What deserves time? They thought in mastery, not virality. And this is the shift that entrepreneurs who care about impact and lasting success need to be focusing on right now. So write this down in your notes app, on a piece of paper if you're old school. Am I building for applause, or am I building for mastery and devotion? That will change everything. Okay, so we know the Renaissance came from an underdog, right? And I love this. Like, Florence was not the biggest, most powerful city in the world. This is also why the power of your thinking can actually make you more competitive to other big giants in business. This is incredible. And this is how influence still shapes the world. And so this is what your creativity can do for your business to get you ahead or competing with these bigger players in businesses. And if we think about it, the Renaissance itself was a return to art, intellect, beauty, creation. And in business right now, we need that again desperately. So here are the 4 pillars of the Renaissance for business owners. The first one, sacred creativity. Again, the Renaissance, they were devoted. Your creativity is so sacred for your business success. And I think you kind of know that. Let's prioritize that. The work was very, very intentional and meaningful. And so here's the modern translation for us right now. Stop creating things to satisfy algorithms and start creating things to express something that feels true. Permission to work on fewer things, but at more of a mastery level. This is where your ideas that can really change the game actually live, not in urgency or pressure to keep churning out content that looks like everyone else's, not in performing. And if you're thinking, but Georgia, I don't have time to do that, stay with me, because the next pillar is what really protects this. Mine's going to be blown. Long-term strategy. Pillar 2. For the Renaissance to be so successful, there were so many plans, there were timelines, and there were studios where all the artists would come together and build for mastery. The cathedrals obviously took them a long time to build, but not because they were slow, because they were building for eternity. What does this mean for you? It means you stop reacting to trends and you reclaim your time. You stop rebuilding every year. Stop taking off the plane, landing the plane again. It takes so much energy. It completely drains you. You start thinking longer term. You think in assets, not just social media posts. This is strategy that serves your creativity. And this is where I see so many people trying to install windows in a house that hasn't built the walls yet. You know, they're focusing on things like fonts and platforms and offers and launches and social media likes before they've even decided, okay, what legacy do I actually want to build? You can make 6 figures like that, by the way. Some people even make 7 figures or more, but the house at some point does crack that way, because when momentum dips, there's nothing meaningful enough to keep you going. And most entrepreneurs think that speed equals growth. It does not. Depth equals growth, which actually creates speed. It's the other way around. If you have ever gone viral, you will know this. You will know that often, like for me, every time it's happened is I know that I've been speaking so from the heart about something and it just feels true, and maybe it was made on a whim and that's the thing that everyone decided they resonated with. Coincidence? I think not. And so I grew to 75,000 following. I built my business not by posting a zillion times a day, but by creating potentially fewer but more sharp pieces of content that felt like art to me, that felt really meaningful. And so that's how I never really get burnt out, because I'm always posting about things I care about. And I know I see the bigger picture, how they all piece together because of the strategy that I have. One really well thought out long form post can generate inbound leads for months and months to come. Many people forget this because they're trying to keep up. Even one clear positioning shift can double your conversions overnight, but maybe that positioning shift itself took a few months to get. I've seen clients, they've spent, 8 to 12 weeks really clarifying their core positioning. And then they go from inconsistent sales to 5-6 figure launches because the market could finally understand what they were trying to say and see the value enough to pay. This really is Renaissance thinking. Michelangelo wasn't painting a zillion different ceilings, one ceiling that lasted for 500 years. When you think long term, you actually collapse time, because instead of restarting momentum every 48 hours, you are building assets that compound on top of each other and everything serves itself. So posting loads will keep you really, really busy. But the worst place as an entrepreneur to be is, oh, I'm too busy to innovate. No. Building deliberately is what makes you very, very wealthy. All major wealth came from actual innovation, not just being busy. And so that's actually a big bottleneck in your business, but that's a conversation for a different day. Pillar 3, legacy messaging. Renaissance masters, they were not controversial because they wanted attention. They weren't pivoting every single year. Look at Leonardo da Vinci, amazing example. Whether he was painting the Mona Lisa, sketching anatomy, or designing flying machines, all of which he did, there was a really strong through line. He was focused on his mastery skills, which were human proportion, geometry and mathematics, and the mechanics of life. You can look in his notebooks and you instantly see that's Leonardo da Vinci's notebook. Michelangelo didn't wake up one year and think, oh, I don't believe in the human form anymore. He didn't change his mind. His sculptures, his buildings, his architecture are all obsessed with the same thing, the power and tension of the human body. That's why 500 years later, we still know their names. Now we bring that into business. When your messaging changes every season, you start building things like confusion, and confused people don't convert. Okay, let's make this more practical. When I refined my core message, my long-term thinking, instead of constantly adjusting to what was trending on LinkedIn, something shifted. People engaged more. They understood me. I have never stopped preaching what I believe. Clients came in already ready to invest. And I've seen this same thing happen with the women I mentor in their businesses. One of my clients, she spent a few months clarifying one problem that she solves in her business. Instead of juggling 5 different offers, we focused on this one, and her content became so much clearer that within weeks, her inbound leads and her actual clients doubled. And it wasn't because she went viral. It was because her people finally recognized her. That's what I mean by legacy messaging. It's more coherent, and coherence is what actually compounds, because these Renaissance artists were building bodies of work, and you are not here just to post random bits of content. You're here to build something that lasts, a body of work that becomes so recognized that people recognize your name when they associate certain ideas with you. When you have this and your message has this really strong through line that's going to be your legacy, people don't just like your posts or follow you. They actually trust you. And trust is what converts. People have been seeing me on LinkedIn talk about the same stuff for a few years now, and so they trust me so much more. Pillar 4. Soul, the inner life of the creator. The Renaissance itself honored the human. It was all about beauty and reflection, philosophy, time, and intelligence. Soul isn't separate from your business. It's actually the engine behind your business. So if we look at the Renaissance, they were so devoted to what they were creating. Michelangelo didn't paint the Sistine Chapel because he needed quick validation. He was just devoted to do that. He painted that because he knew and felt so deeply that he was serving something that felt very, very sacred to him. Leonardo da Vinci didn't study anatomy because it was trending. In fact, no one else was doing that at all. They thought it was weird. He dissected bodies for years because he was actually obsessed with understanding life itself. They created a lot. Yes, they produced a lot of work, but they created from this place of devotion, not desperation. And that distinction changes so much because when you create from desperation of, will this sell? Will this perform? Will this get some traction? Your nervous system starts to tighten, your thinking narrows, and the result is that you don't take the actions to get the results you actually want. Your ideas shrink to stay safe. But when you start to create from devotion, what do I believe? What do I want to contribute? What do I stand for? What means something to me? An impact I'm proud of. That's when your thinking expands. You innovate, you refine things and sharpen things, and you deepen meaning. This feels so good and is very different to someone who's building their business in survival mode that maybe will collapse in a couple of years. Your ideas were planted for a reason. You trust that and you focus on that. That is what builds legacies. So right now I want you to pause. I want you to open your notes app or write it down, this sentence. If I knew I would be supported, no matter what would I create? Not asking yourself what would perform well, what would be efficient, but what would you actually be devoted to? This is a very raw essence of entrepreneurship that allows us to take these big leaps in business. And that answer is very, very close to the Renaissance work that you are supposed to be doing, not the things that you're forcing, okay? So you don't necessarily need a huge pivot, but just ask yourself, how can I bring 10% more devotion into my next piece of work? Moving from desperation to devotion, one decision at a time. Yes, AI will create more content than ever, which means meaning becomes very, very rare. Coherence of all of your body of work becomes very, very powerful. And you become very different because of the depth you are being able to bring forward, that your ideas are not coming from AI. So let's look at how you can start to apply this into your business. Because right now I see 3 different archetypes of entrepreneurs, and it's going to be very important for you to understand which one you are. So I want you to ask this question, but answer this question to yourself before we move forward. Which one do you feel like is more you out of these 4 things I'm going to share right now? Number 1, you feel behind. That means your energy is leaking, by the way. No shame, just pure awareness. Number 2, you have amazing ideas, but you don't have a system. That's okay. Number 3, you are creating lots of things, but you're not actually monetizing it properly in the way that you know you could be. That's 3. So you have those systems, but they're not monetizing or converting in the way they could be. Or number 4, you are monetizing, you're making great money, but now you're ready to be visible on multiple platforms. You're ready to build your legacy, long form assets and content, maybe even write a book. Actually choose one of these 4 right now, because this is your starting point and it's going to help you to decide what is most important for you to do next. The first one is an artist without architecture. You have the depth, you just don't have the system, the compounding or the structure that you need to bring that to life. You probably have loads of ideas and an amazing vision, but your strategy and your structure just needs to be nailed down more, because that means you're often creating, but you're not compounding, which takes a lot of energy to actually get results. The second one, you are the architect, but you don't have that sacred creativity. So you have all your systems in place. You've built something. Maybe you've made great money. You've got that structure, but it feels kind of mechanical. And you feel organized, but not actually really fully expressed. You know, you're here for more, something meaningful, deeper impact, and you need your soul back. And then there's the leader who's really ready for legacy, which I think everyone is right now, but you've grown probably quite a lot. Maybe you're visible, you're good, but now you're being called to expand into different places. Maybe creating YouTube videos, books, longer form content, growing on LinkedIn, multiple platforms, creating a real movement. This is where Renaissance thinking becomes very essential. So keep your number in mind, because the framework I'm about to share solves all 3, just in different ways. So let's look at the universal laws. Now, the Renaissance didn't create these masterpieces by accident. No, no. There were universal laws that made this work last and stay very, very expensive, which is what we want as entrepreneurs. So here's what the ones that you can apply into your business. Law number one: mastery creates speed. Legacy work and mastery is actually the fastest way that your work can create speed, but it doesn't start with speed. And this is what catches so many people up. If you feel behind, by the way, you might not actually be behind. You might be building something that lasts, which is a really good thing. The rarer something is, the more valuable it becomes. So in an AI world of infinite content, depth is something worth a premium price, and that can take time, but it also means more people are willing to pay for that. So if we look at short-term return on investment, we look at cash spikes, going viral, quick wins. That's tempting, but it's very, very unstable. Long-term return on investment is legacy, the community, the audience you build, the assets you create, the opportunities that compound. So you're not here to rent attention. You're here to build something that holds value over time. And to do that, you need to prioritize mastery. Law number two: structure creates freedom. It took me a while to realize that. But if we look at it, mathematics and sacred geometry weren't there to kill art. It gave it depth. In business, your structure, when it's done properly, it doesn't box you in. It holds you so that your creativity can run wild inside something really solid and proven to work. Choose systems that can serve the soul of your business, strategies that actually align with you. Now, here's a secret, by the way, that many people don't say. Every strategy works. Just choose the one that works for you. So then your job is to stick to the plan, stick within the structure, stick to your strategy, stay there for 2 years, stop changing your mind. All strategies work. You just need to stay there inside a structure for freedom for long enough to then get to the point where you feel free in your business. This is real freedom, because then you're building the longer term wealth that compounds and makes you truly, truly free. So law number three: investment yields returns. The Renaissance didn't budget its way into greatness. This is very, very true. It invested. The Medici funded artists, architects, and engineers. They put capital into talent and infrastructure, and the return wasn't an immediate quick win, by the way. It took time, but over that time, do you know what they did? Dominated completely. Culture, influence that lasted 500 years. The power of this underdog of Florence, because they actually invested, was wild. And that's actually economics, which, if you know me, you know I love economics. It's when you place capital, funds, investment into a productive asset that can compound. Capital that's hoarded from fear or saved because you're scared you're never going to make money again, that just decays. And in business, we need to remember this, right? When you invest in a skill, when you invest in positioning, your environment, your systems, you're not spending in a way like you're spending money on something that depreciates. You are buying future cash flow. And so when you try to save your way into growing forward as an entrepreneur, you're going to have very, very linear income and growth. It's going to be quite slow. And there's a wealth secret that all the wealthy people do. And do you know what it is? Invest. Wealthy people always invest. We know this, but the thing is, we then think, but how could I invest if I don't have anything right now? And what I will say is, many of you watching this video, be honest with yourself whether that is you or not. Many of you will have certain privilege. If you are a privileged human being watching this video, to be able to sit and watch a YouTube video, you probably are, then you have a privilege to find a way. And that is what we do as people who have chosen this path of entrepreneurship. We've chosen a different way. We've chosen to disrupt things and to do things differently. And so with the rise of things like education online and YouTube videos, I think people think that they're really in it, but they're really just watching productivity videos on YouTube. You actually want to invest in your skills. Your skills are your assets that you will always have forever. You learning stuff that you can't unlearn. So you can't unsee what you've already seen. So look at modern entrepreneurs. Elon Musk nearly went bankrupt funding Tesla and SpaceX at the same time. He didn't save his way to scale. He risked capital to accelerate his innovation. This is the fluctuation point. And if we look at almost every founder, Sarah Blakely, I love her, who started Spanx, she put her own savings into that before anyone else believed in it. Almost every founder you admire has either raised money. A lot of businesses raise hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not millions, before they even start making a penny, or they have taken out credit cards or bet their own money that they have in their own savings. And I know I can speak for myself. That's what I've done. I've bootstrapped. I've used my own money to do this, and I've taken out credit cards when I didn't have the money to invest in my business. Not because it felt comfortable for me. It was extremely uncomfortable. I didn't want to do that. But I just know that growth compounds when you move and invest in skills. And so I knew I needed to acquire these skills to be able to benefit in the longer term. And something that I want to be really honest with you here is not every investment I've invested into my business gave me the exact result that I hoped for. I think a lot of people have bought things that they've thought, oh, I'm going to, make a certain amount of money if I buy this thing. But every single one, I learned something from it. And so that's the really important mindset to keep ourselves in as entrepreneurs is, maybe I learned clarity. Maybe I had a bit of clarity. Maybe I learned lessons not to do that. Maybe I learned things that will pay me later along the line, not exactly when I want the result, that desperation versus devotion thing again. And the learning isn't, oh, never invest in yourself again. The learning is, okay, let's just refine, adjust, keep going. Because when you stop allocating capital into your growth, your business stops compounding, and stagnation is also something that compounds too, but that just compounds against you, and you don't want that. Okay, so law 4, apprenticeship accelerates genius. This was so cool. The Renaissance itself wasn't lonely people waking up randomly inspired or journaling all on their own. It was people who built together in curated spaces. If you look at Leonardo, he trained underneath another artist. I want to say his name right, Verruccio, I think. Michelangelo studied in the Medici sculpture garden, which is this place where there's just all these sculptures for him to learn from so he could be the best, right? So all these artists, they're working side by side. They're watching each other. They're being corrected. They're competing with each other a little bit. They're refining. Genius was not random. It was the fact that they were creating these things together. Now, fast forward into many different businesses that we see today. If we look at PayPal as an example, it wasn't just one founder. It became what people now call like the PayPal mafia. And they built together, they challenged each other, they became really, really good. And then they went on to build other things with other amazing people like Tesla and YouTube and SpaceX. So many of these founders, they're always mentored. I can say that for myself, right? You don't just do it on your own. Nothing magical is going to happen, just you on your own in isolation. That's a very challenging way to try and create anything, and it's quite depressing. It's proximity to other people scaling at speed. I mean, even watching this video is a great way of doing that. And if we could just look at like Silicon Valley, look at the Renaissance, like the pattern is the same, and that's that excellence grows together in rooms where that is what is prioritized. And so it accelerates things for you. You get feedback quicker, higher standards. And that's why proximity is so, so important. When I always know when a woman enters the right room with a very clear structure, clear standards, clear feedback, she doesn't suddenly become, I'm more capable now. She was always capable, always talented, always committed to her mission. It's just the fact that her blind spots start to collapse and the positioning gets sharper. People start to understand the messaging more and the decisions start to improve. And that's when results accelerate so much quicker. Not because you change who you are, but because you have that brilliance and that intelligence within you that finally has somewhere that's an environment curated for success, which is rare nowadays. Isolation can preserve comfort, but when you have this collaborative structure, that is what creates mastery. And that is why when women come into the room with this structure, results happen so much quicker. So if you are being called to create your own Renaissance era in your business, you're not just meant for a factory business to kind of produce all of this shallow stuff. You're here to create something much bigger and on a much deeper level. So welcome to the Renaissance for business owners. You are not late. You're actually early on this. You're going to see more people building in this way, and we are building a legacy. So listen, sometimes I drop free resources, frameworks inside the comment sections when I feel like it. So have a little look through the comment section. You might find something useful down there or the show notes, but either way, make sure you protect your creativity, build your legacy in a way that feels really good for you, and make something that still matters in years to come. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do subscribe to this channel. It means the world to me. Drop in the comments your thoughts. I can't wait for us to build something amazing together.